Is the Project Management Institute Educational Foundation, and it's a separate organization. And if you think of it this way, some people will say, well, when I die, if I'm rich, I would like to leave $100,000 for scholarships, for example. And that goes into a foundation, and their job is to, if you like, on one hand to collect money and resources, and on the other hand to manage the using of it. So it's non-profit and it's independent, but it's obviously very closely connected with PMI. And the buzzword is here, leveraging project management for social good. That's what we try and do. So normal, if you like, professional project management is for the millions, the business, the government, all those sorts of things. And our focus is more, if you like, in the more human side of projects. And we have picked out 3 particular focuses. From the millions and millions of people, the 3 areas that we have are helping people to be ready for work. So that really means students. Yeah? And then we have non-profit organizations. Sorry, I'm going to go back. Have you seen them? Non-profit organizations here, and then project management as a skill for life. So those are our 3 strategic areas. And the slides that I clicked onto by mistake, these are the pictures, one for each of these. Okay. So when we're doing that, our job is to help that happen. And there are 2 major sources of resource. One of them is people who give money, or probably more likely companies and universities and so on, or maybe successful business people, or chapters, PMI chapters in America, quite a lot of them give some money. But the bigger one is the time of the volunteers in the chapters. And so our job is partly to connect these ideas and help the ideas pass around from one to another. So you can see that we're building bridges, we're contacting people. Okay, so that's our title for today. And we all benefit from good project management. We've had a good discussion about that already. Now this slide here is more to do with the cycle in a chapter, because a lot of the donation or the contribution is from chapter members who do something. And the projects, if the projects happen, of course they bring benefit to the people that are involved. If a chapter gets involved with secondary school children, then the children benefit, the parents benefit, but also the people from PMI who are involved in that. So they are the volunteers. And the volunteers often say they like to have some activity which is outside of their normal professional work, but still benefits from it. So it's a very satisfying area to work in. And then it happens that volunteers are volunteers from chapters, from PMI chapters. So their involvement is also a contribution to the development of the chapter. And one of the nice things about education is it is so broad you can find an interest for everybody. So on the one hand, it's if you like, it's a focus for volunteers to run projects under the ownership and guidance of chapters, PMI chapters. But it's also a good tool for development of chapters. One of those things that works very well, everyone is happy, I think. So we have a new website and a new logo and all that, and what I've done here is I've picked out one video which takes 2 or 3 minutes, which is from my new website, to talk about one of these projects that has been not only successful itself, but it has been replicated in a lot of countries. So I'll just play that for a few moments.
years ago. And the main difference can be summarized in
copyright, for example, for the materials that are produced. And if somebody wants to translate them, maybe the foundation will support the structures there, the legal side of it, and so forth. And then the same material can be used in another country. So that gives you an idea, if you like, of the mechanism. So what happened then was that most of this was happening in North America. So now I'm talking very personally. And the idea was, well, maybe it's time to be more active, more visible outside North America. Not to collect funds, but just to keep contact with people, particularly in chapters where they are doing some work. So that was the idea. And they picked two areas, and one was EMEA, in other words, Europe, Middle East, and Africa, which means everything from Finland to South Africa. And I was asked to sort of do something there. And then I have a colleague in India, and he was asked to do something in India. There's 1,000 million people. So we spent quite a lot of time, and the purpose of this slide is to say that actually communication is very difficult. Now, can anyone read the first language? Anyone? Can you read the first language? Yeah, one or two people. Okay. Can anyone read the second language? Or maybe you could discuss with your neighbour what language you think it is. That's a public sign. Talk to your neighbour and see if you can guess what the other language is. If you talk to the person next to you.
Irish?
No, it's not Irish, no. It's Welsh. It's Welsh. I was a student in Wales, and at the time there were no road signs because they used to have monolingual English signs, and the students tore them down. And when they were re-elected, they came up with a rule that the sign had to be bilingual. So what the sign actually says is that. And they have an office, and the people who make the road signs, they have to get official translation. So the man, he wrote to the office where they do the translation, and the translation came back, and he put it on the sign. Okay? Now, what I'm saying is communication is very, very difficult. And I'll give a specific example. When we were doing things, when I've been doing things with the Serbia chapter, the telephone bridge that PMI provides didn't have a telephone number that you could call from Serbia. So they think, oh, well, we have a global system and you can all talk to each other. But you can't. You can't expect somebody to make an international telephone call to Vienna or something just to connect into a conference. So that's a sign of how hard it is. Okay. So what we did was this. We spent quite a lot of time trying to work out how to get going. We saw earlier from this that there's only about 30 or 35 chapters, and there are very few in Africa. The Middle East is completely different culturally from Europe, and so we have at least 3 major zones. So at the end of the day, what emerged was a series of monthly meetings on the telephone, where the people who are doing the projects, like Walter that you see on the film, the people who do that could present their material and get interaction from other chapters. So person to person between volunteers. And that didn't happen before. So we've had participants from nearly 30 countries, so it seems to have worked in some sort of a way. And the people that we contact are called liaison. The foundation, when talking to a chapter, they can't just talk to everybody. So they say, hello chapter, please nominate a person we call a liaison, and then we talk to that person. Okay? So these are the people involved. So we ran these conferences on the 16th of every month for a very good reason, because you miss Christmas if you do it on the 16th, so you don't lose a month. And by doing the same date every month, it's a different day. If you have the same day, somebody says, but I always do blah, blah, blah on Tuesday. So by picking a date then you move it around a little bit. So we've done that, and we have been very insistent to have a conference every month. And sometimes the participation has been quite low, like me and Serbia, for example. Some of the minimum ones. But what I've done here is I've picked out a few chapters and presentations they made, and I'm just going to pick out one or two slides and say what I thought about them. Very personal. So when I have a comment, I write it here. So it's not an analysis, it's not consistent, it's not complete, but it's personal. If you get these slides, they have links to the teleconferences that we did, although they will be moved shortly. Okay, so Jordan here. The interesting thing about the Jordan chapter is that they had an awful lot of problems to start. You know, they say, where do we start? And Jordan is a kingdom. And so they found that it worked for them to get linkages with the royal family, exactly, yeah. And when they started doing that, then they started getting some support. So if you look here, you see dates. And they did this, and they did this, and they did this, and they had a lot of, it was very iterative, sorry. And that my comment about this is that you just have to keep going. That's the comment. Is that when they started, it took them maybe 2 or 3 or 4 years before they had projects when people could say, yes, it's beginning to work. So that's my personal comment, is keep going. Now, here's another one from Belgium. And what's happening here is that there's a project which is run by a Northern Italy chapter, and the person who's running it is from South America, and the project itself is in the Congo, and they're helping a school, and because the school has no money, they've got a second project to help them earn money by growing vegetables. Okay? And they have a third project where they help to set up a school library. Now, historically, Congo was run by Belgium, and the schools were in French. So they wanted books in French. So the chapter in Northern Italy said, hello everybody, where do we get books? And 2 PMI chapters had them. One was south of France, which is now part of the French chapter, they combined. And the other one was Belgium, because Belgium had this particular contact, and half of Belgium speaks French. Right? So the point is that our role is to help connect all that together. I know somebody in Belgium that you should telephone to talk about this, to fit in with what you're doing over there, and so on. So that's a project. This particular project here has been successful enough to apply and actually get funding from the foundation. But that's unusual. Most projects are funded by the chapter. Okay, what didn't work? What we've got here is, there was also an issue in Belgium where they were trying to introduce projects into schools, so they were associated with this other project, and in schools in Belgium. And what they found was that it was very difficult to get teachers to get involved in projects. So they went straight to the children and gave them some training in project management, and they had more successful events, for example, for little presentations at Christmas, that type of thing. What did work is they have relationships with quite a lot of outside organizations, Lions Club and things like that you probably know. Okay. The question of the PMI liaison, this person, should that person be a member of the PMI, of the project, the chapter board or not? Well, they did that, and they found it worked for them. In Barcelona, the liaison person is the chapter president. And then the problem is that they're so busy being chapter president, they don't have time to liaise and so on. So it's interesting to see how it's done in different places. Now, this was another project from central Italy. I think I'm right in saying there are 3 chapters in Italy: Northern Italy, Rome, and South. Is that right? I think that's the way it is now. And this was from the Rome chapter. And they focused on this is another chapter. They said we'd like to focus on high school students and help them with project management and give them a project approach. And what I thought was interesting here is that they had a prize, a bit of a competition, which was something similar to what you saw in the film, which is also, it says Gorica, but the other part of that project was in Novogorica in Slovenia. And the guy you saw, his wife is Slovene actually, Giorgio. So they live on the border. Okay, what was in it for the students? People got involved because there was something for them. They were challenged, the students were challenged to do thinking. And they say to me that the school system in Italy tends to be very directive. I don't know, I have personally little contact with Italy, but I've been told that it's so, and they found that very interesting. And also the students got in contact with the corporate world because of the involvement of PMI members. So I thought that was interesting. This one is from Barcelona. And what has been interesting here is that they decided that they would like to go along the lines we were talking earlier of introducing project management methods in schools. And Barcelona has, unlike a lot of European countries, it has local government. Countries like France and Italy, you have one government and it's in the middle. So it's very hard to make anything change. But Barcelona is in Catalonia and they can control their own education. And PMI found it much easier to contact them. And another example of that, by the way, is Scotland, where PMI in Scotland is much, much closer to the Ministry of Education and they can change things. Where a place like France, you have the chance, in my view. Now, so these are all various graphics that they had. And they started running a project based for teachers, basically. But the interesting thing here is that the government came back to them and they said, you're not going fast enough. Do you think we could have 5,000 teachers involved? This word family, that means, it's a translation error. It should say trades or something like that. Professional families, if you like. But look at this number here. If 5,000 teachers are involved, then you're getting a culture out. So they have a really big effect. Okay. Kenya is also part of our area. And they started an innovation hub for technology community. And they wanted also to teach people project management. And the nice thing here is a quite significant number of people. Now, an interesting thing here is that the Kenya chapter, I think, was only recently recognized. This was before it was a chapter. And they said, even though they were in formation stage, they would still like to run projects aligned with the foundation. And that enabled them to bring more people into the committee. They have been approved, haven't they? About 2 months ago, yeah, Kenya came in, okay, as a chapter. Israel is another one I thought was interesting. In Israel, they were looking at helping people to CAPM exam. And then by extension, if you like, that would bring more people into PMI and then everyone is happy, you know, that type of thing. So I thought that was also very good because they have a structured approach to that. And the way they do it is workshop for teachers. Okay. So you can see that the actual exams are going to be next year. They haven't quite got there yet. So what I've shown you has been slides out of the last year of teleconferences. And some of those conferences have been better than others, either because of communication or participation or the projects themselves or the level of discussion. But we've built up a tradition. And about 2 or 3 months ago, somebody said to me, well, you should globalize it. And I obviously said yes. So last night, in fact, was the first time that happened. It's gone out of my hands now. But they've started inviting every liaison globally. And the advantage is we get more inputs from more chapters, more ideas, stimulates more people to do more things and so on. So we now have a waiting list. And also there is a PMI staff member who's taking this over. So I wanted to finish with this one, because when we were starting this, Serbian chapter was one of the most loyal members. People from your chapter, several people have been involved and have been on those conferences.